Today's story begins with a chair, an empty one, at my own dinner table. And by the time someone sat in it, my relationship was already over. I just didn't know it yet. There's a chair at the far end of my kitchen table that no one is supposed to sit in. It's not broken or anything. It just became a sort of boundary. Mallory always placed her tote bag on it. I always sat across from her. That chair, it was the unspoken no man's land. Not for guests, not for friends, definitely not for him until the night he sat there. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It was a Friday. I'd just come home from a miserable shift at the print shop, toner-stained hands, sweat down my back, and the kind of headache that makes your eyelids twitch. But I was looking forward to that evening because for once, Mallory said she'd be home on time. No girls' night, no late rehearsals, just her and me. A home-cooked meal, a movie, maybe even, dare I say it, a conversation that didn't involve her phone buzzing mid-sentence. I made lemon garlic pasta, her favorite, said 2 plates, 2 glasses, even folded napkins like a dork. The whole thing looked like a Pinterest photo that tried its best but had anxiety. Mallory was late. 20 minutes, then 40, then an hour. I didn't text. I didn't want to be that guy. I kept checking the pasta, stirring it like that would make time go faster. Finally, just before 9, I heard the key turn, and then the door opened, and then I heard 2 voices. 2. She walked in, and behind her, this tall, smug-looking guy followed like he owned the floorboards. He had that, I play guitar badly but still get invited to every party look. Brown leather jacket, unbuttoned shirt, too much cologne. Mallory beamed like it was normal. "Ezra, this is Riven. He was in the area. I told him to swing by." Swing by like this was a public cafe. Before I could say anything, she pointed at the pasta. "Who is that?" "The lemon garlic one. Riven, you have to try this. Ezra makes it perfectly." I stared at the man walking toward the kitchen. Then I stared at the empty chair. You already know where he sat. He didn't even ask. Just dropped his jacket over the back and took the seat like he'd done it 100 times. I watched Mallory fill his glass before touching mine. I watched her lean in while he talked, like I wasn't even there. And I sat there stupid, blinking, chewing pasta that tasted like ashes in my mouth. He complimented my cooking like I was the hired help. "This is great, man. Didn't know you were domestic." Mallory laughed. She laughed like that was cute. I excused myself to the bathroom halfway through and just stood there gripping the sink, staring at my reflection. I looked like a guest in my own home. After he left, I waited for her to say something, to apologize, to explain, to act like she noticed what had just happened. Instead, she looked at the sink and said, "You left the pasta water on too long. It got kind of gummy." That night, I barely spoke. I just lay there beside her in the dark, listening to her scroll through Instagram while I stared at the ceiling. The next morning, she kissed my forehead and said, "By the way, Riven felt like you were kind of cold. You might want to apologize. He was just being friendly." I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just said one sentence, the only sentence I could get out before my voice cracked. "Mallory, you need to choose." Mallory didn't respond right away. She just blinked at me like I'd asked her to choose between pizza toppings, not between me and another man who sat at my dinner table like he belonged there. I repeated it slower this time, even though my throat was dry and my hands were shaking. "You need to choose." She smirked, actually smirked. "Ezra, come on, don't be dramatic. You're jealous. That's not a good look on you." She said it like I was a kid throwing a tantrum, like my feelings were an inconvenience instead of a signal that something was seriously wrong. I felt heat crawling up the back of my neck, but I kept my voice even. "Mallory, I made dinner. I waited 2 hours. You showed up with a guy who didn't even say hello and acted like he lived here. Then you asked me to apologize. What part of this do you think is normal? She rolled her eyes and walked into the kitchen as if the conversation was over just because she didn't feel like having it anymore. I'm not getting into this. Rivet's my friend. He needed a break and I invited him over. I didn't think it would be a federal offense. She opened the fridge like she hadn't just stomped on everything we built. I followed her in slower this time. You didn't think it would be a federal offense because you didn't think about me at all. That stopped her for a second at least. She turned back and gave me a look I couldn't place. Somewhere between guilt and annoyance. I just thought you'd be cool with it. You're usually chill about this stuff, right? Because I always swallow my discomfort like a good little boyfriend. Because I let things slide. Because I don't slam doors or yell or accuse. But being chill doesn't mean I don't feel it. It just means I've been silently drowning in things I never dared say out loud. I crossed my arms. What if I brought a girl over in the middle of a dinner you made for just us, and I let her sit in your chair, serve her wine, let her flirt across the table? Mallory laughed again, the kind of laugh that tells you someone knows they're wrong but refuses to admit it. You wouldn't. You don't even have female friends. I didn't respond to that. What was the point? She turned back to the fridge. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't choosing because in her mind there was no choice to make. She assumed I'd just deal with it like I always did. That I'd sulk for a bit, stew in silence, and then come crawling back with some half apology for overreacting. But something in me shifted. I picked up my keys and wallet, walked to the door and said, "Let me make it easy for you. You don't have to choose anymore." Her voice echoed behind me. "Ezra, don't be stupid." But I was already outside, the cold air biting at my skin, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I didn't look back. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a bag packed. I didn't even have a place to sleep that night. All I had was the sick twist in my stomach, the sound of my own breathing, and the weight of her voice still echoing in my head. "You're being dramatic." That phrase clung to me like smoke. I walked for hours through quiet streets, passing glowing windows where other people were living lives I couldn't imagine anymore. Couples eating dinner, kids laughing from inside. The world kept spinning. Mine had just come to a stop. I ended up at a 24-hour diner across town, ordered black coffee I didn't want, and stared at the scratched Formica table like it held answers. Around 3 a.m., I pulled out my phone. No missed calls, no texts, not even a "Where are you?" She knew where I was. Or more accurately, she knew why I left, and that silence was louder than any screaming match we'd ever had. I finally messaged an old friend, Callum. We hadn't talked in months, mostly because Mallory didn't like him, said he was negative energy. That should have been a red flag, shouldn't it? The way she slyly cut people out of my life like trimming fat off meat. Always smiling, always just being honest. Callum replied within minutes, told me I could crash at his place. Didn't ask questions. He lived in a small studio above a closed-down tattoo parlor. When I arrived, he was waiting at the door in pajama pants and socks with holes in them. "You look like a drowned ghost," he said. "Come in. Couch pulls out if you kick it hard enough." We sat on the floor, eating dry cereal. I hadn't planned on telling him the whole story, but once I started, it just spilled out. The dinner, Riven, the empty chair, the smug grin, the way she wanted me to apologize, and then finally, the words I couldn't stop thinking about. You don't even have female friends." Callum listened quietly, then asked the question I'd been avoiding. "You ever wonder how long she's been treating you like a background character in your own life?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The next morning I opened my phone to 2 texts from Mallory. 8:13 a.m. "Are you done sulking yet?" 9:01 a.m. "I'll give you one more chance to apologize before I start rethinking this whole thing." That was it. "No, I miss you." Number, "Are you okay?" No recognition of how badly she'd crossed a line. I was about to turn off my phone when a third notification popped up, a screenshot from an unknown number. No message, just the image. It was a photo of Mallory and Riven at a rooftop bar, time-stamped 2 nights before our anniversary dinner. His arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder, his hand somewhere it definitely shouldn't have been. I stared at the image for a long time, numb. Then I zoomed in. Her eyes were closed. She was smiling. That's when it became clear. The dinner, the fake surprise, Riven showing up like it was spontaneous. It had all been rehearsed, like I was the audience in a play written behind my back. It wasn't about choosing anymore. She already had. I didn't respond to her texts, not right away. I stared at them for hours while the screenshot burned a hole through my pocket. I could barely sit still, let alone breathe. My heart wasn't racing. It was sinking. The kind of quiet collapse that doesn't come with rage or panic. Just the dull, heavy realization that the person you loved built a second life while you were busy making dinner for 2. I paced Callum's apartment like a caged animal, reading the time-stamped photo over and over again. 2 days before our anniversary, her hands around his back, his lips practically on her temple. She hadn't bumped into him at our dinner. She'd already been out with him. That chair at my table wasn't his first intrusion. It was just the first one I saw. Callum watched me fall apart in real time. I think he wanted to say, "I told you so," but he knew better. Instead, he tossed me a worn hoodie and said, "Get some air and don't call her until you know exactly what you want to say." I walked around the block 7 times. It was a gray day, the kind where everything looks like it's been run through a filter of disappointment. I ended up outside a little flower shop we used to visit. Mallory loved the place. Called it our secret garden, even though half the town went there. She'd pick out tulips and daisies, then post them with captions like, "He knows me so well, Red Heart." Funny how she never tagged me. I don't know what got into me, but I walked inside, bought a single rose, then took out one of the store's little blank cards and wrote just 2 words. I know. No name, no anger. Just the truth. I left it in her mailbox with the rose and walked away before I could second-guess it. It took her exactly 12 minutes to call me. At first, she didn't say anything, just breathed into the phone like someone trying to figure out how much damage control was needed. Then finally, "What do you mean you know?" I didn't respond. She went on, voice rising in pitch. "If this is about that stupid photo, you're seriously overreacting. That was nothing. He was drunk. I told him not to." Still silent. "Ezra, you're making up a whole story in your head. This is what happens when you spend too much time sulking and not enough time trusting me." That was it. That was her play. Not denial, not apology. Blame. Flip the script. Make me the villain for noticing the betrayal. She didn't even bother to hide. So, I asked calmly, "How long has it been going on?" She scoffed. "You're unbelievable." I repeated the question slower. That's when the rage cracked through her voice. You want some kind of confession? Fine. He kissed me once. Big deal. I didn't stop it because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but it wasn't serious. Not like what we have. I almost laughed. Almost. Because that was the moment I realized how warped her version of reality had become. She thought she could cheat, lie, and then bargain with the scraps. You didn't stop it because you didn't want to hurt his feelings. I asked, "What about mine?" She went quiet. I took a breath and said the words I didn't even know were forming until they left my mouth. "I'm not coming back, Mallory. You chose. Now live with it." Then I hung up. Not out of drama, not for effect, but because for the first time in our relationship I was done being the quiet one. The thing about silence is that once you finally step into it, you start hearing things you never noticed before. Like how loud your life used to be. The constant hum of justifying someone else's behavior. The background noise of explaining away things you didn't want to face. Once that noise stops, you're left with clarity. And clarity hurts more than betrayal ever did. 2 days passed without another call from Mallory. No texts, no fake apologies, no late-night "I miss you" traps. And somehow that stung worse because it confirmed something I hadn't admitted to myself. She hadn't lost me. She'd already let me go long before Riven, long before that dinner. She had been slowly replacing me with someone who fit her chaos better. Someone who didn't notice when she disappeared emotionally because he was too busy doing the same. Callum offered to let me stay as long as I needed. I appreciated it, but I could see the strain. His studio wasn't built for 2 adults and a pile of emotional baggage, so I found a short-term rental a few blocks away. A cold 1-bedroom with peeling wallpaper and a view of an alley dumpster. But it was mine, and for now that was enough. On my 3rd night there, I ran into someone I never expected to see. Harper. Harper was Mallory's old roommate. They'd grown apart after a nasty fight I was never allowed to ask about. All I knew was that one day Harper disappeared and Mallory said she was toxic. I had to cut her off. At the time, I believed it. But seeing Harper now, arms full of groceries outside the corner market, she didn't look toxic. She looked surprised and maybe a little worried. "Ezra," she asked, "you okay?" I hadn't spoken to another person about the breakup besides Callum, but something in her face invited honesty. "She cheated," I said, voice hoarse. I walked out, haven't looked back. She blinked, then gave a bitter laugh. "You lasted longer than I did." I asked her what she meant, and Harper hesitated before answering. Mallory has a pattern. She needs to be adored constantly, and when the high fades, she finds someone else to fill the silence. She did it to me emotionally, not romantically, but I was disposable the second I stopped revolving around her. It hit me like a punch to the chest, not because it was new, but because it confirmed everything I hadn't wanted to say out loud. I wasn't the first. I wasn't special. I was just the next in a long line of people who confused her chaos for depth. Before we parted, Harper said something that stuck with me. She'll reach out. Not because she regrets it, but because she hates not being in control. And she was right. Later that night, my phone buzzed, a message from Mallory. "I wrote something for you. It's not an excuse, just what's on my heart." Attached was a long paragraph, stylized like a poem, full of soft metaphors and vague sorrow. Words like fractured, we, and timing. Not once did she say, "I lied." Not once did she say, "I'm sorry I betrayed you." It was a love letter to the version of her she wished she was, sent not to heal, but to make me feel like I'd walked away from a tragedy instead of a slow-burning wreck. I stared at the message for a long time before typing just 3 words. This isn't mine. Then I blocked her number. I thought blocking her would give me peace. What I didn't expect was how quickly she'd try to get around it. Not a full day later, I started getting anonymous messages through email. They weren't even subtle. No subject line. Just lowercase paragraphs starting with, "If you just talk to me, and you're not even trying to understand what I went through." It was surreal. Like I'd stepped out of the relationship, but somehow she was still trying to drag me back into a scene that no longer existed. Then the real twist happened. One night, I got home from work and found an envelope stuck in the doorframe of my rental. My name was scrolled across it in her handwriting, the kind I used to think was quirky and now just made me nauseous. I stood on the porch for 10 minutes just holding it. I didn't want to open it, but part of me still had a heartbeat for what we used to be. And that part, as weak as it was, peeled it open. Inside was a single photo. The chair, the one from our dinner table, the one she let Riven sit in. But this time it was tipped over, lying sideways on the hardwood floor like some symbolic tragedy. And behind it, barely in frame, was her hand holding a wine glass. I flipped the photo over. One sentence was written in black ink. I shouldn't have let him sit there. That was it. No apology, no signature, no actual accountability. Just another performance. Another calculated image meant to stir guilt or nostalgia or some kind of emotional softening. Like she still believed I was that same guy who'd wait in the rain for her outside art galleries or cook for her on nights. She didn't show up. Like I hadn't changed. Like I couldn't. I sat down at the kitchen table in my rental, the new table with 4 matching chairs that no one had claimed yet, and realized something brutal. She didn't miss me. She missed having a mirror that reflected the version of herself she liked best. I used to be that mirror, quiet, supportive, available. Now I was just gone. The next day, Callum called me out of the blue and asked if I'd seen her latest post. I hadn't. I'd unfollowed her on everything, but he read it to me word for word. Some people give up on you the moment you show them your scars, but real love stays. The caption was under a filtered photo of her holding a sunflower and looking like she just finished crying, or wanted people to think she had. The comments were flooded with, "You deserve better," and they never appreciate the real ones. I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. She was turning the breakup into content, a public mourning of the fantasies she'd carefully edited. And I knew exactly what would come next. The sympathy, the attention, the soft comments from men she barely knew, the emotional replacements. But not me. Not this time. That night, I took the photo she left and slid it into the trash without a second thought. I didn't burn it, didn't tear it in some cinematic rage. I just threw it away like any other piece of trash, pretending to be important, because that's all it was now. A performance. And I'd finally left the theater. I expected anger, maybe another apology disguised as poetry. But what I didn't expect, not even for a second, was for her to show up in person. It was a rainy Sunday, and I was finally beginning to feel like myself again. I had a routine, mornings at the cafe down the street, evenings sorting through freelance work, nights where I could fall asleep without replaying everything she ever said. I hadn't spoken about Mallory in days, not even to Callum. That was a milestone. I was starting to believe healing was real, not just something people post about in aesthetics-heavy Instagram carousels. Then came the knock. Not loud, not rushed. Just soft, polite, deliberate. I knew who it was before I opened the door, and yet, for some reason, I still opened it. She stood there, soaked to the bone. No umbrella, mascara, slightly smudged, wearing that green sweater I once told her made her eyes look unreal. It used to stop my breath. Now it made me nauseous. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, like she hadn't carefully staged this entire moment. "I figured you wouldn't answer my messages, and I blocked you, Mallory." I didn't say it with venom, just a reminder of reality. She looked past me like she could still walk in if she wanted to, like my space still belonged to her. "Can I come in?" "Number." It came out firm, final, and God, it felt good. Her face shifted. She wasn't expecting that. I think she really believed I'd crumble, that I'd see her in the rain and forget everything she did. That the old Ezra, the one who apologized for her mistakes, would crawl back out and wrap her in a towel and listen while she rewrote history with teary eyes. She held up a small box wrapped in newspaper. "It's just some of your things. Thought you might want them." I took it more out of instinct than anything else. Inside was a mug I didn't miss, a t-shirt I hadn't thought about, and a photo of us I was sure I'd never seen. A candid shot someone must have taken at a birthday party. I was laughing, holding her hand. She was looking away, already distracted by something else. I didn't ask who took the picture. I didn't ask why she thought it belonged to me. I don't want anything from that house. I said, putting the box down, not the stuff, not the memories. Definitely not the lies. Mallory stepped forward. "I was confused, Ezra. You never gave me a reason to doubt us, but I felt, I don't know, restless. I made a mistake. I wanted to scream, not because she was lying, but because I could see she actually believed this line would fix it." "You didn't make a mistake," I said slowly. "You made a choice, over and over. And then you watched me take the blame for how cold things got between us." Her lip trembled. Maybe she was about to cry. Maybe she wanted me to believe she was breaking too, but I didn't care anymore. That part of me, the one that needed her to feel the pain she caused, was gone. Replaced by a version of myself that had nothing left to prove. I stepped back and closed the door without another word, and this time I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear her run off crying or banging on the wood. I just heard the rain. She didn't think I could be happy without her. She didn't think I'd move on. But the truth was simpler than all of that. I was finally free. Weeks passed. No more texts, no more photos, no more dripping apologies dressed up as sentiment. Mallory faded like a bad dream. Still real, still painful, but with every sunrise, harder to hold on to. And I didn't try. I let her go like a balloon at the edge of a cliff. Not dramatic, not angry, just done. What surprised me wasn't how easy it was to move on. It was how natural it felt once I stopped clinging to the version of her I thought I loved. The truth is, I'd been mourning a relationship that only ever existed in my head. The late dinners, the laughs, the plans for the future. They were real to me, but not to her. I had been loyal to a memory. And once I saw that clearly, it stopped hurting. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Nothing fancy, just small canvases that made sense to me. Abstracts, layered colors. I wasn't good, but it wasn't about that. It was about being someone who had a life beyond being someone's emotional doormat. I reconnected with friends I'd pushed away. Harper and I grabbed coffee one afternoon and laughed like we were rewinding time. She said I looked lighter, said I sounded like Ezra again. That stuck with me. And one day, walking past the same flower shop Mallory used to love, I bought myself a sunflower. Just one. No caption, no performance. Just a small reminder that I didn't need someone else to prove I was lovable or worth staying for, or enough. I was those things on my own. She never got that photo. I never posted it. I didn't need to. Some things don't have to be shared to matter. Some victories are quiet. So yeah, maybe the story didn't end the way I thought it would, but in a weird way it ended exactly how it was supposed to. I didn't get her back. I got me back.